Hello and welcome to Cupcake Addiction's Exploding Jello Brain Zombie tutorial, where I'll be showing you how to make this awesome zombie cake pop that looks remarkably like the zombie out of Plants vs Zombies, so perfect for Halloween and also perfect for your Plants vs Zombies occasions. Tools and equipment that we will be using today. I'm resting my pop today just in a polystyrene block. I've got a couple of Lollypop sticks in a Ziploc bag. I've got a pair of scissors. I've got a pre-rolled cake pop ball. Now, if you don't have a great recipe for getting your pops to this stage ready to decorate with, I will leave a link to the Cupcake Addiction recipe in the description box below. I've got some melted green chocolate or green candy melts. Now, with these ones, I've used 90% white chocolate and I've just popped in just a couple of candy melts. So I really just added a few candy melts or a little bit of either gel or powder colouring just to get that really kind of nice light greenish colour. I've got one of our frozen Jello brains. I've got a little bit of black candy melted. I've got two different types of sprinkles. They're both jimmies, but some are black and some are white. I've got some of the Wilton eyes. Now these are sold in little jars by Wilton. They're just little eyes, but if you don't have access to those, you can certainly make your eyes out of fondant. And I've also got, these ones here are just mints, but the equivalent would be sixlets. So they're basically just a little round, these ones are a mint flavored candy. They're gonna make our bulging eye. The Wilton eyes will be our other eye. A little bit of condensed milk, some gelatin, and some jelly, we call it in Australia, or jello if you're in the US. As well as that, I've got a spoon. So the first thing that you want to do in preparation for this tutorial, and this can be done a day in advance if you wish, is to make up your jello in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. So for me, that's just adding boiling water, but before I add that boiling water, I'm going to take a tablespoon of additional gelatin. I'm just using powdered gelatin available from my local supermarket. That's just going to be to firm up our jello and make it a little bit more solid and less likely to run or less likely to fall apart inside our zombie head. Once you've finished making your jello, this is where our condensed milk comes in. Now the condensed milk is really just going to change the colour of the jello. It's not going to alter the taste terribly much at all, but it's going to give you more of that kind of opaque pinky effect. So I've just used strawberry jello. You can see there it's quite red. And when you add in, I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of the condensed milk. Give it a good stir around and you'll see it comes up more of like a bit of an opaque pink colour. That's going to be the basis for our brains. So now you want to take either a circle mould or I'm going to use 1/2 of my silicone cake pop tray, and you just want to spoon in about a halfway full or 2/3 of the way full little circular dome. Don't make these domes too big because there is going to be a lot going on and you've got to remember it's all got to rest on top of our little Lollypop sticks. We're going to pop those into the refrigerator to completely set. Once your brains are completely set and you're happy that jello is fully set, you want to remove them from the refrigerator. To get them out of your silicone cake pop mold, you just need to break the seal. So I do this by just running just a blunt knife around the edges. Don't use a sharp knife because you don't want to cut through. Just run your blunt knife around the edges and you should just be able to pop out those little brains. Pop those brains onto a tray with a little bit of greaseproof or wax paper, and we're going to pop those into the freezer and we're going to let them freeze solid before we decide to start using them for our cake pops. Alright, so with our preparation done, it's time to get our cake pop shaped and ready. So what you want to do is you want to take that jello brain, and just bear in mind these do defrost really, really quickly. So just take them out one at a time, pop them into your cake pop ball, and then get the next one out. Don't take the whole tray out and try to do them all together because you'll find the end ones do get thawed out quite quickly. So you want to take your cake pop ball, and that's just a standard size cake pop ball, and you just want to flatten it out between your hands quite thin. Place your frozen jello ball at the top, and you're just going to use your fingers here just to press it down. You want it to be quite thin, that chocolate over the top of that jello dome. You can see there. And then I'm just going to pinch underneath. So don't pinch too hard because you don't want that cake pop mixture to tear. And I'm just using my fingers to just pull it down. So it'll look a little bit like a mushroom. Now, as you pull that down, I'm just smoothing off the top, making sure that I don't have too much, and make sure that you do keep that jello. You'll be able to see the shape of it underneath there. Make sure that you keep it that right shape so that it's kind of standing up the right way. If you do get any cracking, so you can see the jello through there, just pinch it back together and mould it all up. So you can see there the shape that I'm going for is a little bit of sort of an alien face, and this doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our zombie kind of needs to be a little bit rough and a little bit saggy and zombified. So now before I put that in the fridge, I'm just going to use my finger and I'm just going to give myself 2 sort of guide holes there for where I want those eyes to go. Make sure that I'm happy. That's the kind of a shape that we're going with. So nothing too perfect. That's going to go into the fridge for about 15 minutes until it's really, really nice and firm. All right, so when you come out of the fridge, you should have a really nice firm cake pop ball. So as I'm pushing that, it's not pushing out of shape. So what you want to do now is take one of your lollipop sticks and we're just going to dip it into that green chocolate just a little bit, about a centimetre and a half. You want to pop it in at the bottom of your zombie's head, and I like to twist it as I'm pushing it in. So just twist that stick and make sure that you don't push it all the way up to that jello. So you really only want to take the top of the stick until about there. Now that's going to go in the fridge and we're going to let that refrigerate until that chocolate seal has completely set, and then we'll be back to dip and decorate. All right, so we're back from the fridge and I'm happy that my chocolate seal is really, really nice and firm, nicely set. So we're going to dip. Before you dip, you want to make sure that you've got one of your bigger sprinkles ready. So I've got my little sixlet or my little mint and one of those Wilton eyes. You want to make sure that you've got those at the ready, as well as some of these black sprinkles. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our melted chocolate and I'm going to dip our zombie all the way in. Give him a little turn, make sure that seal is completely covered, and then I'm going to pull him out and I'm just going to tap off any excess. Once again, don't worry if this is not a beautiful, neat coat. He's a zombie, he's supposed to be a little bit rough. Beautiful. All right, now before that starts to dry too much, you want to take your sixlet or your mint, the larger of your eyes, and just push it into that eye socket. And give it a good push so you kind of get a little bit of that sort of saggy eye around the edge. And then take one of your Wilton eyes and pop it in the other side. Once again, giving it a nice push in, kind of gives him a bit of an eye socket. Beautiful. Now, if that's not set yet, you can start popping in some of your little zombie, just the weird little random hairs on top. So I'm just going to take some of those black sprinkles and stick them in on top. Different lengths, different places, and it doesn't matter how many or how few of these you do. I gave my other one about 4 or so on top and then 3 on each side, I think. If you find that your chocolate does start to dry, you can just use a little bit of chocolate at the end once you're all said and done to just affix some of these. So just pop a little tiny blob of chocolate down and use that chocolate as a bit of a glue just to attach your little hairs. So you should have at this stage a zombie that's looking a little bit like this. I'm going to let that chocolate completely set, and then we're going to come back and we're going to paint on the final details that are really going to bring him to life. All right, so your little zombie should now be completely dry, so we can pop him down and we can do his finer details. So you'll notice I didn't put any of that hair on the back. That's so that I can lay him down, make him a little bit easier to work on. So you want to take that Ziploc bag and just those black candy melts. Now you can either use black candy melts here, otherwise you could also use black cookie icing, black writing icing, or even black food colouring that you dilute with a little bit of alcohol. You always dilute food colouring, especially if it's a colour paste, with a little bit of alcohol. It just helps it to dry a lot faster. If you don't, it can take up to 3 days for food colouring to dry on chocolate. So I'm just going to snip off just a really tiny little corner of my Ziploc bag to fashion a very, very fine piping tip. So you can see there, it's a really nice little fine line that we're getting out of that piping bag. Now, with this little fine line, I'm going to give him just a few little sort of worry lines or frown lines across the top of his head. These are just giving him a little bit of character. And down the side of his face. Beautiful. We want to, of course, give him an eyeball. And in my opinion, this final step is what brings him to life. So we're going to get his little mouth together. For the little mouth, for his teeth, that's where our white sprinkles come in. So pick the shorter of your white sprinkles, otherwise you can break the bigger ones in half. But you basically want them to be as small as you can. They're just going to make little tiny teeth. So those sprinkles break really easily. They're quite fragile. And different sizes is perfect because he's a zombie. So I've got my teeth at the ready. So now I'm just going to pipe on just a bit of a rectangle. So do one line across. You want his mouth to be open because of course he's looking for brains. All right, so you can see there, nothing too special at the moment, it's just a rectangle, and once you pop those teeth in, you want them to be nice and gappy. Just rest them down. Doesn't matter if they're crooked, it doesn't matter if they're not in line with each other. And there you've got your finished zombie cake pop. As I mentioned, he's awesome for Halloween. When your guests bite into him, they're going to get that great Jello brain. For storage and serving of these cake pops, you do want to bear in mind that you've got Jello inside. If you've decided to put the Jello brain inside, of course that's optional. Now with Jello, They will be fine at room temperature for about 24 hours, but if you need them for any longer than that, if you've made them a day or two in advance, do make sure that you keep them in the fridge, just because that jello is quite moist, and moisture with your cake in a warm environment will create mold. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping them at a nice cool temperature. I hope that you guys have loved this Halloween tutorial. Stay tuned for lots more Halloween, and don't forget about our Halloween playlist with lots of great ideas from last year's Halloween. Thanks very much for tuning in to MyCupcakeAddiction.